Who will win? A single B-17 Flying Fortress versus 50 Messerschmitt Bf 109s. Deep into enemy airspace, boxed in by flak, low on fuel, and bad odds, in the tail turret, Staff Sergeant Michael Mad Mike Donovan saw every gunner's nightmare. Messerschmitt Bf 109s forming up at 6 o'clock. Standard procedure said, stay in position and fire defensively. Training said, conserve ammunition. Common sense said, survive. Donovan had other plans. In this video, we're going to see how one B-17 Flying Fortress, facing impossible odds, rewrote the rules of bomber combat forever.
Donovan grew up in South Boston, where you learned one lesson early: waiting gets you hurt. His father worked the docks. His older brother boxed in the Golden Glove circuit. Mike didn't grow up dreaming about medals. He grew up learning that if trouble is coming, you hit first and hit hard. When Pearl Harbor happened, he didn't hesitate. He enlisted in the Army Air Forces. They tried to place him on ground crew. He demanded gunnery school. Instructors didn't like his style. Too aggressive, too exposed, too willing to take risks to keep firing. Donovan's response turned into a line men repeated long after graduation: dead gunners don't shoot back, live ones do. He didn't graduate top of the class because he was the best marksman. He graduated near the top because he was the fastest hunter. Donovan could acquire targets quicker than anyone they trained, and his secret was simple. He didn't wait for fighters to enter his firing zone. He hunted them before they got there. By early 1944, Donovan reached the 390th Bomb Group in England. The B-17 Hell's Fury already carried an ugly reputation. 3 missions, 2 near disasters with German fighters. The previous tail gunner lived, but asked to be transferred. That position's cursed, he told the crew chief. Next man dies there. Donovan volunteered immediately. Captain James Whitmore, the pilot, interviewed him personally. You know the statistics? Whitmore asked. Tail gunners have the worst odds. A lot of them don't finish their tours. Donovan shrugged. Then I'll beat the odds. I don't wait for them to shoot me. I shoot first. Whitmore stared at him for a moment, then nodded. You're insane, he said. You'll fit right in. On Donovan's first mission with the crew, he did what tail gunners were trained not to do.
When fighters began forming up for an attack, he fired early, too early, at ranges instructors called pointless. He sent bursts toward aircraft still organizing, still tightening formation, still planning their approach. Most rounds missed, but the fighters broke and scattered. His reasoning was blunt. A short burst at long range costs a handful of rounds. A broken attack run can save a bomber and 9 lives. The crew chief hated the ammo count after landing. Donovan had burned through most of his load. Donovan didn't care. And we didn't get hit, he said. I'll take that trade every time. Then he refined it. Instead of tracking the obvious threat, the lead fighter, Donovan targeted the wingman, the one not expecting return fire yet, the one flying predictably to maintain spacing. When that wingman went down, the lead fighter suddenly found himself alone, and alone fighters didn't like running straight into a fortress's guns. Donovan wasn't just shooting, he was rewriting the psychology of the attack. German fighters attacked bombers in coordinated waves. The classic pattern relied on discipline, multiple aircraft approaching from the rear quarter, one drawing fire, the others exploiting the gunner's focus. American doctrine assumed the enemy controlled timing. Donovan saw the problem immediately. American gunners reacted. German fighters dictated. So Donovan asked a simple, dangerous question. What if the tail gunner took the initiative? What if the bomber didn't wait to be attacked? Mission briefing. Deep into Germany. Heavy resistance expected. Big target, worse odds. Whitmore gathered the crew. This one's going to be rough. Stay sharp. Donovan spoke up. Permission to try something different, sir? Whitmore frowned. Different how? Aggressive fire, Donovan said. Engage before they commit. Break them up while they're still forming. That burns ammo, Whitmore warned. You'll be empty when the real fight starts. Or I'll prevent the real fight, Donovan replied. We've been playing defense for 2 years. How's that working out? Whitmore hesitated, then gave him one mission. Prove it. If we get shredded, you're off the gun. They crossed into Germany, climbed steady at altitude, and the hours felt routine until the call came. Fighters, 6 o'clock high. Donovan turned the twin 50s. A dozen Bf-109s far out, organizing into a clean attack. And Donovan opened fire immediately. Not at a perfect range, not with careful patience, at the moment where doctrine said wait. Tracers arced out into open sky. Most missed, but the effect was instant. The German formation wavered, split, and scattered. They weren't being destroyed, they were being disrupted. They had planned to attack a bomber. Instead, they were suddenly defending themselves. Whitmore's voice snapped over the intercom. "Donovan, cease fire. You're wasting ammo." "Negative, sir," Donovan said. "Watch what happens next." The fighters regrouped, but now they approached cautiously, hesitant, probing. The initiative had shifted.
Donovan fired again as they formed. Again they broke. One fighter didn't. A veteran held his line and kept closing, counting on the bomber gunner to do what gunners always did: panic, spray, and fail. Donovan didn't panic. He waited until the target filled the sights. Then he fired a sustained stream. The Bf-109 tried to break straight into the tracers. Its engine flashed, erupted, and came apart mid-air. "Good kill," someone said over intercom. Donovan didn't answer. He was already hunting the next. The remaining fighters adjusted. They split into groups, trying to divide his attention. One group threatened from 6, another from 7. This is where most gunners tried to cover everything and failed. Donovan did the opposite. He ignored the 7 o'clock threat and concentrated everything on the 6 o'clock attack line. "Waist gunners," he called. "You've got 7. I'm holding 6. The waist gunners opened up. Donovan stayed locked on the direct stern approach because that was the killing lane. That was where a fighter could sit behind the bomber and saw it apart with cannon fire. The first fighter in the 6 o'clock group detonated. The second replaced it and died. Then the third. In seconds, the attack collapsed. The remaining fighters didn't reposition. They fled. They weren't retreating to reset. They were running from a tail gunner. Donovan checked ammo. He'd burned hard, but he still had enough for another engagement. He was going to need it. 15 minutes later, more fighters appeared, more organized, more determined, coming from multiple angles. A normal response would be to spray defensively, cover everything, survive by luck. Donovan chose violence with a plan. He again trusted other gun positions to cover the sides, while he owned the direct stern. 6 fighters drove in from 6 o'clock like it was an execution. Donovan opened at maximum effective range, walking tracers into their flight path, forcing a choice: break formation and abort, or hold course and die. The lead fighter held course. Fatal mistake. Its canopy shattered.
The aircraft rolled and fell. Donovan shifted instantly to the next, firing where the fighter had to be, not where it was. The second aircraft flew into the stream and erupted. The rest broke off, not to reposition, but to escape. Whitmore's voice cracked. "Jesus Christ, you splashed 2 in seconds." Donovan didn't reply. He was reloading. As the formation pressed on, German fighters began shadowing from outside range. Whitmore recognized it immediately. "They're calling reinforcements." Then the sky filled. Dozens more contacts, Bf-109s and FW-190s, building into a massed assault. And hell's fury had drifted away from the main bomber stream during the fighting. The nearest friendly bomber was miles off. No escort fighters in sight. They were alone. Donovan checked his ammo. A few hundred rounds. Dozens of enemy fighters. The math didn't work, unless he changed the equation again. "Permission to try something," Donovan said. Whitmore's tone turned cautious. "Explain." "They're forming up for a coordinated hit. If we wait, we die. If I break their organization before it hardens, we have a chance." "You'll be out of ammo in seconds," Whitmore warned. "Then I better make it count." Whitmore paused, then answered. "Do it. If you get us killed, I'm writing your family a very angry letter."
Donovan fired into the center of the forming mass, not aiming at a single fighter, but at the space where discipline lives, where pilots try to hold spacing, where a leader expects his wingmen to be. Tracers pour through that invisible structure. One fighter caught fire, two collided trying to evade, and the rest scattered into chaos. A coordinated strike turned into a swarm. Not attack, survival. But Donovan knew the truth. He had bought time, not victory, because swarms reform, and his ammunition was almost gone. The Germans regrouped fast and came again, this time abandoning finesse. A dozen fighters drove straight in from the rear. Donovan didn't waste rounds on the nearest aircraft. He targeted what he believed mattered most, the psychological center of the group, the place where confidence spreads. He fired short, crushing bursts. One exploded. Two broke away smoking. Another fell. Another. Cannon shells tore past the bomber's tail. Metal screamed. The fortress shuddered. Donovan kept firing until the belts ran dry. "Dry on guns," he called. For the first time, the most feared man in the sky had nothing left to shoot. The Germans regrouped again, fewer now. They'd paid a horrifying price, but they believed they had the advantage. They came from directly behind, low, steady, methodical, execution. Donovan couldn't fire, but he could still aim. He traversed the turret smoothly, tracking the lead fighter as if the guns were loaded, keeping the barrels centered on the cockpit. The German pilot saw the perfect tracking. He flinched, pure instinct. He broke hard, and the rest followed. Because even if you think a gun might be empty, you don't bet your life on it when you've already watched your friends fall.
The attack dissolved, and it didn't come back. Hell's Fury reached the target, dropped its bombs, and limped home with damage. Holes in the airframe, stressed control surfaces, systems shaken but functional. They landed after a long day in the air. Ground crews counted the empty ammo boxes, every round gone. The kill claims were checked against witness reports and intercepts. 12 confirmed, more probable. A single tail gunner had done what should have been impossible, not because he had magic aim, but because he stole the enemy's initiative and broke their nerve. By the next morning, tail gunners across the base were asking the same question: how did he do it? 8th Air Force leadership didn't treat it like a bar story. They treated it like a breakthrough. Donovan explained it in plain language. Don't wait for the enemy to begin the attack. Attack the formation phase. Use early fire to disrupt coordination. Focus your sector instead of chasing every angle. Spend ammunition to prevent the fight, not just to survive it. And accept risk, because passive defense was already killing crews. Command wanted results, not tradition. So they pulled Donovan from combat and put him where he could save more than one crew: training. In the months that followed, Donovan built an aggressive gunnery program that spread across bomber groups. The principles were simple: seize the initiative by engaging fighters before they can fully commit, and use psychology as much as firepower. Sometimes the first burst is meant to intimidate and disrupt rather than score kill. Concentrate your fire on the most dangerous approach lane and treat every round as a deliberate decision, because preventing a threat from developing is usually better than reacting once it has matured. Above all, accept calculated risk, since sustained aggression can lower total losses over time, even when it initially feels more dangerous. Not everyone could do it. Some gunners froze. Some couldn't break defensive habits. The ones who could became a different breed, men who didn't think like targets. They thought like hunters. Donovan never flew another combat sortie. He trained others until the war ended, then went home to Boston, worked construction, and rarely spoke about what he'd done. No parades, no celebrity. Just a man who did what he believed worked and then disappeared back into ordinary life. But the men he trained remembered, because for thousands of airmen, survival didn't come from hiding or conserving. It came from making the enemy afraid to come close. March 6, 1944, lasted only minutes, but it proved something that echoed across the skies for the rest of the war. Sometimes the best defense isn't endurance, it's aggression. If this story meant something to you, like the video, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because we keep history alive by speaking the names of the men who lived it.